So, Jumbo Africa, it is so unfortunate that up to now we haven't figured out as to why people who are not Africans are so interested in coming to Africa. And we go back to the times of the scramble for Africa. The reason for that scramble for Africa was that there was something that came in called the Industrial Revolution, which needed natural resources like gold and rubber, cocoa beans, and also all the other raw material that can be taken from Africa. So the scramble for Africa was about that because the Europeans thought they could not colonize other European countries. So the scapegoat became Africa. So they had to come to Africa to disrupt, the kingdoms and knowing that Africa was not united. So they exploited that because they had studied that the nations in Africa were not united. They wouldn't work together. Like today we have European Union. We're still trying, trying this African Union and it's not working because Africans tend to look down upon themselves and idolize foreigners. So that's the downfall for Africa. So the most important thing that Europeans wanted in order to get more power was land, because land is power. If like our governments now are busy selling land to foreigners, that's empowering foreigners, but not, but at the same time disempowering their own. So that's a problem that is happening now. So the Berlin Conference of 1864. In fact, it started in the early years of the 1800s. There was this contemplation about making sure that Africa is colonized, and they succeeded in doing so by engaging in these wars of colonization. So the border that we have now in Africa were actually made by those greedy Europeans who thought that the best way in order to make peace among themselves was to colonize Africa. We, as South Africans, we are in the crossroads. The economy is dwindling. The powers that be, that means the rulers of South Africa today, have no clue as to how to go about the problems that we are facing. The problems, the main problems, is that nations and some tribes within Africa are scrambling for what is called colonizing, colonizing the African continent, whether in the name of religion. That today we speak of ISIS, the Islamic State, that is going around and taking charge of certain countries in the name of Islam. It is a problem that is fanned by foreign countries who are busy arming these insurgents to go around and cause chaos and overthrow governments in the name of Islam. That is the problem that we're facing. The next problem that we're facing is the Chinese trying to curb unemployment in their regions by producing all these counterfeit goods and coming to dump them in Africa in order to provide jobs for their own people. Because what is happening, when you go to places like Crown Mines in Johannesburg, you'll see there's a lot of things called China malls. Those China malls, that's where the dumped products that are manufactured in China are sold. And it's costing the South African revenue so much in taxes that South Africa is supposed to tax those goods that are sold in those China malls, but nothing has been done. They just come in containers, and nobody is worried about checking as to how much and what revenue. And in the China malls, you'll find that there are different shops. But if you want to buy something, and that particular shop that we are in, which is run by a Chinese a woman or man, does not have that product, somebody will be sent immediately to go to another shop to go and pick it up and bring it to the same shop. So you can see that the products that are sold there are actually belonging to one person. It's just a matter of making sure that all the angles are covered, so that they make sure that they take the money from South Africa for their benefit. So it's another way of colonizing South Africa by bringing those counterfeit goods to come and sell them here. The next thing, they're going to use the same money to buy land. At the end of the day, we will end up not having land in South Africa because it will be sold to the Chinese. So it's colonization changing its face, not as brutal and killing of citizens in order to govern them. But we will find ourselves without land and in a huge debt from the Chinese. All the nations are doing it. It's not a Chinese only. The Pakistanis are doing the same thing. And the Russians will do the same thing. Then the people from Europe will do the same thing. They've been doing it all along. So they are going to intensify it, but it's a matter of changing it. And the other nations that are busy colonizing or introducing slavery, in a very subtle manner, are the sheikhs from Saudi Arabia, from the Middle East, if you like. All the people from Turkey are here. They are selling their Persian carpets at the China malls as well. So they have come together and they ganged up in order to make sure that they do trade and avoid paying taxes, so to make this country a failed state. So as it is now, South Africa is fast becoming a failed state, and it's a concentrated effort by these nations that they must come together and make sure that South Africa becomes a failed state, because as it is now, we are not collecting taxes. As it is now, people are not working because Chinese bring stuff here and then those goods are sold by Chinese. It does not create employment for South Africans. So a clever government will start by making sure that whoever brings products for sale in South Africa, those products should be sold by a South African, which means a South African will have to form a partnership with Chinese or Pakistanis or anybody who wants to open a shop. That shop should belong to a South African, and the Chinese can only pay rentals for having had his stock sold in this country, and make sure that the people who are selling it are South Africans. The people who are working in that shop should all be South Africans, because we know that China has got a problem with unemployment as well. But I don't think it is fair that Chinese should solve their unemployment in their country, in South Africa. It doesn't make sense. It says something about us, that after all these years, from the time of Jan van Riebeeck up to today, we haven't woken up. We haven't realized that all foreigners come to South Africa or to this country only solely for their benefit, and make sure that the citizens do not benefit at all. This is what is happening. The last thing that I can do is to make sure that only one person benefits, and at the expense of the whole nation. So that is the problem that we need to solve now in South Africa, of foreigners coming to solve their unemployment problems at the expense of the South African citizens. That should stop, and we need to find a way and make sure that it stops right here, right now.